The wind came first. It crept low across the plains like a living thing, slipping through the tall grass, rattling the fence posts, whispering warnings no one listened to anymore. Dust rose in thin spirals under the fading sun as Caleb Rourke reined in his horse at the edge of the ravine. He had ridden this land for 20 years. Every rise and hollow, every crooked mesquite, every place where the earth dipped just enough to break an ankle or hide a rattler, he knew them all. And yet tonight, something felt wrong. The horse sensed it too. The animal snorted, ears twitching, refusing to take another step forward. "Easy, boy," Caleb muttered, his voice roughened by years of wind and silence. He slid down from the saddle, boots crunching against dry stone, and scanned the ground ahead. That's when he heard it. A sound so faint he almost mistook it for the wind. A woman's voice. "Please." Caleb stiffened. Out here, voices didn't just appear. Women didn't wander alone. And beggars, real beggars, rarely survived long enough to be heard twice. He reached for the rifle slung across his back, thumb brushing the worn stock, and followed the sound down into the ravine. The land dropped sharply, shadows pooling between jagged rocks where the sun couldn't quite reach. Thorn bushes clawed at his coat as he pushed through, eyes sharp, breathing slow. "Please, don't lift it." The voice cracked on the last word. Caleb froze. There, half hidden beneath an overhang of stone, was a shape that didn't belong. A wagon, or what remained of one. Its wheels were splintered, axle snapped clean in two, canvas torn and hanging like a dead thing's skin. And beneath the collapsed side of it, pinned to the earth by a heavy plank and a slab of rock, lay a woman. She couldn't have been more than 25. Dust coated her dark hair, plastered to her face with dried blood along her temple. Her dress, once pale blue, was torn and soaked through at the hem. One arm lay twisted at an angle that made Caleb's stomach tighten. Her eyes were open, wide, terrified. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered when she saw him. "Please, just go." Caleb knelt a few feet away, rifle still in hand. "You're hurt," he said. Her lips trembled. "I know." He took in the scene in seconds. No tracks besides the broken wagons. No horses. No bodies. That meant one of two things. Whoever attacked her had taken what they wanted, or were coming back. "What happened?" he asked. She swallowed hard. "Bandits, I think. They chased the wagon. My husband tried to outrun them." Her voice broke. He didn't. Caleb didn't ask where the body was. The answer sat heavy in the air between them. He shifted closer, eyes flicking to the rock pinning her side. It was big, bigger than it had any right to be. The kind of weight that crushed ribs and turned breathing into agony. "I can lift it," he said. "No," she cried out, panic flaring in her eyes. "Please, don't. You don't understand." Her hand shot out, fingers digging into his sleeve with surprising strength. "If you lift it," she whispered, "I'll die." Caleb hesitated. He had seen men bleed out from wounds they didn't know they had. Had seen women walk on broken legs until shock finally claimed them. He knew what pressure could do, how it could be the only thing holding death at bay. "Tell me why," he said quietly. She looked away, shame and fear warring across her face. "They stabbed me. Here." She gestured weakly toward her side, where the dress was darkest. "The wood, it's stopping the bleeding." Caleb's jaw tightened. He shifted his coat aside, just enough to see. The plank pressed into her abdomen was soaked red beneath the dust. The blood had dried at the edges, but fresh crimson seeped with every shallow breath she took. If he lifted it wrong, too fast, without binding the wound, she'd be gone in moments. "You should have let me die," she whispered. "Would have been quicker." "That's not your choice to make," Caleb said. She laughed weakly. "Funny. Everyone else already made theirs." He ignored that and looked around. The ravine walls were steep, but not impossible. He could run for help, but the nearest settlement was half a day's ride. She wouldn't last an hour. "I need to see the wound," he said. She shook her head violently, tears cutting clean lines through the dust on her cheeks. "You lift that plank, and I bleed out. You leave it, and maybe I last until morning." "There is no maybe," Caleb replied. "You won't." She stared at him, searching his face like she was trying to decide if he was another kind of monster. "You don't know what you're doing," she said. "I know enough." Slowly, deliberately, he set his rifle aside and shrugged out of his coat. He tore a strip from the lining, then another, hands steady despite the stakes. "What's your name?" he asked. "Eleanor," she whispered. "I'm Caleb." He tied one strip around her arm, just above the elbow, tightening it until she hissed in pain. "What are you doing?" she gasped. "Keeping you conscious." He slid closer, positioning himself carefully. "Eleanor," he said, locking eyes with her, "when I lift this, it's going to hurt. You're going to want to scream. Don't. You focus on me. You hear me." She nodded, terrified. He braced his shoulder against the plank and counted under his breath. 1. Her fingers dug into the dirt. 2. Her breathing turned ragged. 3. He lifted. The weight came up slowly, inch by inch. Blood surged immediately, dark and fast. Eleanor cried out, biting down on her sleeve to keep from screaming. Caleb moved faster then, pressing the folded cloth hard against the wound, binding it tight with the strips he'd torn. His hands worked with brutal efficiency, ignoring the slick warmth coating his fingers. "Stay with me," he growled. "Stay with me." Her eyes rolled back for a moment, then snapped open. "I'm here," she whispered. The plank fell away with a dull thud. The rock followed. For a heartbeat, the world went quiet. Then Caleb saw it. The wound was deeper than he'd expected. Too deep. The knife had gone in at an angle, one that suggested intent, not panic. Whoever had stabbed her had known exactly where to strike. And beneath the blood, beneath the torn fabric, he froze. Because carved into her skin, just above the wound, was a symbol. Not a brand, not a scar from an accident. A deliberate mark. 3 lines intersecting a circle. Old, precise, familiar in a way that made his chest tighten. Caleb had seen that mark before. Once, years ago, on a body that had started a war. His breath caught. Eleanor followed his gaze, panic flooding her face. "You saw it," she whispered. "Didn't you?" "What is that?" he demanded. She shook her head, tears spilling freely now. "That's why they chased us. That's why they killed my husband. That's why you should have left me." Caleb sat back on his heels, heart pounding. Because whatever Eleanor was running from, it wasn't just bandits. And lifting that plank hadn't just saved her life. It had dragged the past screaming back into his. The wind slid through the ravine again, carrying the coppery smell of blood and something older, fear that had soaked into the land itself. Eleanor lay trembling beneath his hands, her breathing shallow but steady for now. The cloth he'd tied was already darkening, but the bleeding had slowed. It should have felt like a victory. It didn't. Caleb couldn't stop staring at the symbol carved into her skin. 3 lines cutting through a circle. He knew it like he knew the scars on his own knuckles. Like he knew the sound a man made when he realized he was already dead. "You shouldn't be looking at that," Eleanor said faintly. "I've seen it before," Caleb replied. Her eyes snapped to his face. "When?" she whispered. "Years ago. North of here. Outside a place called Red Hollow." Eleanor swallowed hard. "Then you know." "I know it left 37 men dead," Caleb said. "And 1 town wiped off the map." Silence fell between them, thick and heavy. Caleb pushed himself to his feet, scanning the ridge line above the ravine. The sun had dipped low now, painting the rocks in long, bruised shadows. This was the hour raiders liked best, when light lied about distance and fear did the rest. "We can't stay here," he said. "I can't walk," Eleanor replied. "I can barely breathe." He nodded once. "I'll carry you." Her eyes widened. "You can't." "I can. And I will." Caleb moved fast. He slid one arm beneath her shoulders and the other beneath her knees, lifting carefully, keeping her wound pressed tight against his chest. She cried out softly, then bit her lip hard enough to draw blood. "I'm sorry," he muttered. "I've heard worse apologies," she whispered weakly. He carried her up the ravine step by step, boots slipping on loose stone, muscles burning. Every instinct screamed at him to hurry. The mark on her skin felt like a beacon, like something that could be sensed rather than seen. At the top, his horse stamped nervously. "Good boy," Caleb murmured, though his voice betrayed him. He eased Eleanor into the saddle, tying her in place with practiced knots, using his coat to pad her wound. "You fall, you die," he said bluntly. She gave a faint, humorless smile. Comforting. He mounted behind her, reins tight, eyes never leaving the horizon. They rode. The plains stretched wide and empty, but Caleb knew better than to trust emptiness. It hid things. Always had. Eleanor's head lolled back against his shoulder. "Caleb," she murmured, "I'm here. If we don't make it, we will." She laughed softly. "You say that like it's ever been true for me." He didn't answer. The ranch came into view just as night fully settled in, a low sprawl of weathered buildings surrounded by fence lines and mesquite. No lights burned. Caleb preferred it that way. Light told stories he didn't want told. He dismounted quickly, lifting Eleanor again and carrying her inside the main house. The door creaked shut behind them, sealing out the wind. Inside smelled of wood smoke and old leather. Caleb laid her gently on the table, clearing space with one sweep of his arm. He lit a lamp, its glow revealing the full extent of her injuries. She was worse than he'd let himself admit. Her skin was pale, almost gray, sweat slick across her brow. The blood-soaked cloth had slowed the bleeding, but infection, shock, those were still waiting. He fetched water, boiled it, cleaned his hands as best he could. Eleanor watched him with unfocused eyes. "You're not asking questions," she said. "I will," Caleb replied. "When you're stable." She smiled faintly. "That mark won't let you wait." He met her gaze. "No." He cut away the remaining fabric around the wound. The knife wound was deep, but clean, too clean. A deliberate strike meant to hurt, not kill. "Not immediately." "Why mark you?" he asked quietly. Eleanor closed her eyes. "Because I carry something." Caleb stiffened. "What?" "Knowledge," she whispered. "Names, places, roots." He wrapped fresh bandages around her, tighter this time. "Whose names?" Her eyes opened slowly. "The circles." The word landed like a gunshot. Caleb stepped back, heart hammering. The circle. Men who wore no colors and flew no flags. Men who paid others to die for them and never left tracks behind. Men who carved symbols into flesh like signatures. "They're supposed to be gone," Caleb said. "They are," Eleanor replied. "And they aren't." He dragged a chair close and sat heavily. "My husband," she continued, voice shaking. "He found records. Ledgers hidden in a trading post. Roots used to move weapons and people. He thought selling them would buy us a new life." Caleb's jaw tightened. "It bought you a grave." She nodded, tears slipping free. "They let me live so I'd run. So I'd lead them to whoever tried to help me." Caleb cursed under his breath. "You shouldn't have come with me," Eleanor whispered. "I didn't," he said. "You came to me." A knock sounded at the door. Not loud, not polite. 3 sharp raps. Caleb froze. Eleanor's eyes filled with terror. "They're here." "Quiet," he breathed. The knock came again. Then a voice. Smooth, calm, wrong. "Rancher," it called. "We know you're home." Caleb reached for his rifle. "There's no need for trouble," the voice continued. "We're only here for the woman." Eleanor clutched Caleb's sleeve. "Don't." Caleb leaned close. "If I open that door, stay still. You'll die," she whispered. "So will they." He stood, shoulders squared, and opened the door. 3 men stood outside. They didn't look like bandits. Clean coats, calm eyes, hands resting easy near their guns. One smiled. "Evening." Caleb didn't return it. "You're trespassing." The man chuckled. "This land doesn't belong to you any more than it belongs to us." Caleb's finger rested on the trigger. "You leave," he said, "or you don't leave at all." The man's smile faded. "We offered mercy once," he said. "We won't again." Caleb fired. The night exploded into chaos. Gunshots thundered, glass shattered, horses screamed. One man fell before he could draw. Another dove for cover, firing wildly. The third, fast, trained, rolled and shot back, the bullet tearing through Caleb's shoulder. Pain flared white-hot. Caleb staggered but stayed upright, firing again. The second man went down hard. The third ran. Silence returned, broken only by Caleb's ragged breathing. He slammed the door shut and locked it, blood soaking his sleeve. Eleanor stared at him in horror. "You're hurt." "It's nothing," he lied. She struggled to sit up. "They won't stop now." Caleb met her gaze, eyes burning. "Neither will I." Outside, the wind carried the echo of retreating footsteps. Inside, the past had finally caught up. And it wasn't done collecting its debts.